Howdy, everybody. Today is Tuesday, April 12th, 2022, and the time is 5:30 p.m. We're here for the regular session of the Coppell City Council meeting. We do have a quorum present, so I call the meeting to order. We're going to be convening into the executive session on the first floor conference room. At the conclusion of the executive session, I will come back out here and announce that we're going into open work session. Just as a point of information, we are under a tornado warning, we believe. Watch, sorry. Our safe areas are in the stairwells of the building and also in the restrooms. So let's hope and pray that we don't have to take advantage of those. And let us keep the best interest of Coppell at heart, so the best days of our city are still in our future. I will be back out when we're concluded with executive session. Thank you for your attendance tonight. Good afternoon, everybody. We have adjourned from executive session. The time is 6:39 p.m. and we are moving into work session in the first floor conference room, and the public is invited to join. Thank you.
What's that? They might actually be getting more traffic over that way.
Yeah. They need to actually spend. Continue.
Yeah, put a deep right there.
That's right. You guys actually can contribute to the
Hey, we can tour through my parking lot. It's fun. Future martial arts students. Yeah. Come on through here.
Have a big 800-pound
just gorilla. Big hot air balloon. I would die inside every time I drove by that. I didn't tap like, oh my God. And my wife was the one like, we need to calm down.
Can I I repeat that? Okay. All right. So good evening, everybody. The time is 6:42 p.m. We're moving into work session. The item number A is discussion regarding agenda items. Does anybody have anything that they would like to ask, talk about, bring up on our agenda tonight?
If we're gonna talk about
I just have a few confirmation that I want to make.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I had a question on item C first.
Okay, Jared, consider approval to purchase server hardware.
I just had a question about, it talks about outfitting 21 fire vehicles, and then I noticed on the, I guess on the proposal quote, and I don't know, that it's quoted for 42 antennas, so is that normal to have 2 antennas on each vehicle, or?
Believe that is so these routers have the ability to have multiple SIMs and multiple carriers for cellular carriers. I think it's a single shark fin with, I think that's the cable itself. So there's 2 cables coming off a single antenna, one for each of the 2 carriers will have.
Okay, it's just cable, not the antenna itself.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it talks about we're trying to go to, I guess, be consistent with the police vehicles, right? And when were the police vehicles upgraded to these type of systems? Do you know?
It's when we replaced the police vehicles, and I'm trying to recall when that was. I mean, I'm gonna guesstimate here about 6 to 8 months ago.
Oh, okay.
We actually procured that
So it's
solution.
pretty recent.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have in there.
Okay.
Cliff, you got anything? All right.
And then I
Anybody? Oh.
Yeah, a few.
Oh, I thought you were. I'm sorry. I thought you said you were done.
Oh, that one I was done. C.
Okay, next. Then.
I had a question on E, which is the
panel replacement.
the panel replacement. Just wondering, it says 4 months for completion of the project. Is that just one section or the entire? Or are they all going at the same time, pretty much? Okay. That's all I had on that. And then on F, and I saw that it says at the end of the life of the use. Does that mean that the cost of maintaining it is more than replacing it? Is that what,
Right.
or just because it's 10 years we're done? Or?
Yeah, I think they've got a rated life to them, and beyond that, there's a safety consideration.
So the cost is,
Yeah.
okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Sure. Don?
Yeah, we talked about 13 briefly.
Short-term rental.
Short-term rental. So the ordinance was put into place, so it looks like one of the functions is it's not going to have a sunset provision any longer. We've had a sunset provision up to this point, and I guess I want to talk through that a little bit with this group. That is such an evolving and continues to evolve, not only how the city approaches it, but even how investors are coming in and buying up houses or whatever it is. And I just want to make sure we're comfortable not having a sunset provision. I don't want to add an additional administrative burden on staff if that's all that does. I mean, I know we can bring it up at any time, but I would sort of like to hear thoughts from the rest of the group on should we have a sunset in a year or two or something, or does it matter? Does anybody else have the same concern, I guess?
Well, on the STRs, well, we had it set up where we just reviewed it every January.
It would
That was
expire,
just-
right? Isn't
Yeah,
that the way it was?
it was sunsetted. But now, the contract, are you talking about the contractors that did all the evaluation?
No, with the, I mean, don't they have to sign up each year, the owners?
Mindy?
Yes, yes. So that's one of the things we're changing is that they will have to do an annual application now for a short-term rental permit.
It sunsets as the ordinance.
That's the ordinance, correct.
Right. So, I'll say I did think about what you just said,
Okay.
but I was okay since we could always,
Bring it up.
right, bring it up and change it if we needed to.
Okay. Well, and that makes sense. I guess I just want to make sure we do bring it up when something becomes concerning, I guess, in town. And I guess that's what, you know, if, as
Mayor wants to, and this is for the benefit of Councilmember Carroll, who wasn't here when we started this journey. We didn't know anything about it when we started, so now we've kind of learned and kind of know the lay of the land and what to expect. We've got some court cases now, so we feel that we know a lot more and what we can do and what we can't do.
right.
And I will say that since we first passed this thing, we have been in constant mode of changing this for almost 3 years. And so I think we're in a place where we can do that. If there's a court case or something that causes us to have to make a change, we're going to make that change and we're going to bring it to you.
Okay.
And if you guys are aware of anything in the industry because of your observations or comments, get those to Mike and we can visit with you again. But
Right.
we've been constantly kind of chasing this rabbit since we first started this.
Right.
And so we feel we're in a place that we can put some regulations in effect, and if something happens, we will bring it back.
Okay.
Bijou?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. A question for G, CRDC appointments for officers.
Hold on, I think we were still on.
We're still on STRs.
Short
Oh, sorry.
We'll get to you in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Kevin?
Yeah, so I guess, with Don's concern, let's say hypothetically, there's a reoccurring problem, let's say with like excessive parking or something like that. Would we still have a mechanism where staff's gonna come to us and say, hey, we're seeing this problem, even though there's not that sunset, but we're seeing this, we would highly suggest we make this change on, allowing the amount, a smaller amount of vehicles for each location or something like that. I just kind of am curious about what the staff's, like, how are we gonna get information to staff to be aware that there might be a problem where we need to address something?
Well, Mindy's nodding her head back behind you.
Absolutely. If there's something that continues to create problems in the communities, we will absolutely bring it back. The other thing about the sunset review is we run the risk leaving it in there that if we don't renew it, that it expires completely.
Anything goes at that point.
And actually, that was my view. I've been watching this since we got started, and we definitely had a sunset, but my fear was something would happen right at the end of the sunset that would keep us from renewing it, with some uncertainty, and then we wouldn't have anything. And it's better to have it being in process, even if we're modifying it. It's just a lower risk to my way of looking at it.
Well, that's all fair. I just wanted to make sure, because I know it seems like every week there's a new opinion or a new tidbit of information out there that, paints a different picture and everything. I just want to make sure we're being responsive and addressing things as they come up. All right.
Okay. Anything else on STRs? All right. I'm sorry. I was, yes, Bijou. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was looking for it on the agenda and I couldn't find it, so I was getting confused. Yes.
Yeah. Number G, can you explain to us, Ashley, what's the CRDC, the new appointments or what?
So every year, the CRDC board has to appoint officers for the board. And so by their bylaws, they have to be approved by council. That is what this is. So
They're already sworn in.
yes, they already sworn in members, but they now serve as president and vice president of the board. So their leadership roles within the board. That's
Okay.
what that is.
Do we individually approve each board's?
No, sir,
Okay.
only CRDC is
Okay.
required in its bylaws.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other agenda items? All right, let's move on. Item B, just a FYI, Dr. Hunt was going to present some demographic data from the school board and some other information. He is only just now receiving that, and he was not in a position to present tonight. So he is asked to move that to May 24th, and he will be presenting to us at that date. Item C is discussion regarding the service center improvements. Ms. Jamie. Oh, there you go.
Over here, hiding on the other side. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jamie Brierton. I'm the Capital Programs Administrator in the Public Works Department, for those of you that I think I've presented to all of you in the big room before. I'm here tonight to discuss the Service Center Improvements Project. The goal of this project is to allow us to better serve the community by providing appropriate space for parks and public works operations. And as you will recall, the project has been in the 5-year plan and also in the debt model, and we're just bringing it forward for your consideration and discussion. So there's really no action required from this tonight. Okay, it went. Okay, there's a lag. So just a little background. I think most of you guys have been to some of the functions that we have at the Service Center, but we're located over at 816 South Coppell Road. It was constructed in 2002. It takes up 11.5 acres over in Old Town. It was there before there was an Old Town. So it was situated about 300 feet back behind the road, behind some bushes, which is now, the bushes are now Life Safety Park. I went back in Google Maps and kind of looked at what it looked like at the time. I lived here back then. It was a 2-lane asphalt road with just really very country road back then. So now it's kind of developed in the Old Town. That building currently has 76 people working out of it, and those field operations divisions are Public Works and Parks, and that's parks and ball field maintenance, fleet operations, water and wastewater operations, streets, drainage, facilities, traffic operations, and then all of the supervisory and staff support for those work teams. Currently there's very limited restroom, locker room spaces. There's no women's locker room at all. The crew rooms and meeting and training spaces are from a less technological era and kind of smaller in space. There's a lot of like old school mailroom type atmosphere versus the technology of having laptops and access to computer space. There's no real public facing restrooms or public facing spaces at all. A lot of the outbuildings, kind of similar to the schools, when you run out of space, you move to the outbuildings. Outbuildings are used right now to house traffic and some of the staff for facilities. And one of the things we're trying to accomplish is moving we've spent millions of dollars on infrastructure for traffic, and if you've been out into the sign shop back there, they're kind of back in a little barn area. So just kind of getting them into an appropriate space. This is the front of our building. Like I said before, the overall goal is just to improve customer service and provide public outreach for the facility. And then also to connect the service center into Old Town and the existing Life Safety Park via sidewalks, some light poles and exterior elements, just to tie in the overall site plan. The way we're proposing to accomplish this is to use a new office building and utilize the frontage between Life Safety Park and the current parking lot that's shown there. And I'll get into the kind of the layout that we're proposing later in the slides. But to create more of a public-friendly space that utilizes public access, removes that public access from that existing building and creates a new space. This was to create functional office space, collaborative meeting space for parks and public works operations, and this includes a traffic operations center, public works operations offices, support staff, training offices, parks operations offices, public outreach, and an outdoor education space. And then in this proposal, we were looking at repurposing this existing service center, which would be one is more the office area for the new building, and this is more of the workspace for the crews. And this is expanding the men's locker rooms and restrooms to meet capacity demand, and adding a women's locker room, adding bench and workspace for fleet facilities, parks, and utilities, expanding Parks and Public Works crew rooms to meet capacity demand and technology upgrades, and then utilizing some of that space for emergency staging and bunk space, because each year we seem to have people spending the night in hotels and sleeping on the floor in their offices. So just having, those emergencies that happen every year and making sure that we've got a place for those people that are going to support the city in the winter storms or other natural disasters. They've got a place to stay. Whoops, I need to change it up here too. So this is the site plan that we used for service center upgrades in phase 1 and 2. And so you can see the, let me shoot if this is, okay, that one is not going to work on the TV.
Try that.
Okay, so turn around. So this one is South Coppell Road, and this is what I'm calling the private extension of Burn. So Burn Street's over here, Art Center's over here. So this little areas of Life Safety Park, and then the existing service center building. In phase 1, we added this dark shaded area, which is paving. And then in phase 2, it was these vertical buildings for covered storage. And so this is just the existing parking space and the shared parking for Life Safety Park. So phase 1, which is the dark gray shading, was in September of 2015, and that was relocation of fence line, 30,000 square foot of additional concrete paving and parking, replacing asphalt, adding water to the parking area, an addition of driveway to Life Safety Park, and foundations for the vertical structures in phase 2. And that was kind of the first time the original discussion of phase 2, and then this one that we're calling phase 3 for the improvements happened, and that was during September's 2015 council memo and meeting. And then phase 2, which is the light gray shading, was the new bulk storage enclosure, new covered vehicles and equipment storage, and auction storage building. So I'm going to flip through some of those phase 1 and phase 2 photographs. So those are kind of, if you've had the meals out there with us, a lot of times we're doing it out here in these covered spaces. So bulk storage and some additional paving that we've added. And then just kind of a nice panoramic of the back area. So phase 3, which is what we're talking about tonight, is the service center improvements. And this is Parks and Public Works. And we've met with, we've engaged Corrigan Architecture several times since 2017 to just meet and do kind of test fit, space planning, needs analysis, kind of just really just looking into what do we need. Originally, the plan was to expand the existing service center, and after discussions of cost analysis, it was actually determined that the best fit is, in the least expensive version, was to just go ahead and do the new building, which allows the existing office space to be utilized and the new building be built and not really have anybody have to move out of their space. This exact solution would be developed over the next 6 to 9 months, because obviously this is why I'm here tonight to talk about if we want to move forward doing an RFP for architecture. So we would develop that in the next 6 to 9 months for the design phase, and we'd like to use green standards in both the new building and then using the existing building, retrofit that to allow for that crew workspace. The area below on the learning area, behind us there on the south side, that learning area is proposed to be a hands-on outdoor learning area that's a future project that we would like to plan for now and include as an opportunity for public outreach, and then really tie into Life Safety Park for the school field trips and things that they use. And so tonight we're just asking for discussion and feedback. The reimbursement resolution is also on the agenda for this evening, and the amount is the $5 million. And the next steps would be proceeding with an RFQ for architectural design, which would include the site and master plan development. And then going forward, we would bring any updates through council for design and phasing into construction for the project. So you would see it multiple times throughout the project. So with that, I would just thanks for your time and open it up to questions and comments. I can flip back to any slides if you want to see those again.
Mark?
I have a question. So what does public go there for? You said you need public-facing space and public restrooms.
So right now, people come in and do permits and meetings. We typically host some design meetings similar to what we do at 265, where we do pre-construction meetings and things like that. So
Right.
not necessarily, the public that comes in just off the street wandering past, but they're intentionally meeting there. We have water meetings that we host there from surrounding cities, and similar to what fire does. And so right now, if you wanted to go to the restroom and you were just in there picking up a permit or doing a water meter, then you basically have to have somebody take you all the way to the back, because you're not gonna find it on your own. And when you walk in, there's that meeting room. I've been in there many times in the meeting room where just some general public person opens the door and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was the front door," and they're it's not laid out. I don't know that in 2002 they're anticipating the amount of public interaction that we do have. I think we looked at the old 2000 memo from Parks, and it was intentionally 300 foot away from the road because they weren't anticipating public interaction. It was moved out of DeForest because the buildings were nice around it, and they wanted to move this kind of functional but not pretty building out away from public eye. So now that it's all kind of grown around it, we're just facing public interaction that we're not built to support. Does that make sense? Okay.
Absolutely.
As far as capacity goes, I'm assuming that we're anticipating any future growth in the parks and public works departments, that we're going to be basically future-proofing this.
We're not necessarily anticipating. I think we're operating at a deficit currently. So it's not necessarily anticipating growth. It's just accommodating what we're lacking currently.
Okay.
So there's really not necessarily going to be a larger amount of offices. It's just if the original thought was we were going to try to retrofit the existing building, and then by the time you bring the locker rooms and add a women's locker room up to standard and add the crew space, you basically don't have any offices left in that building. So.
Thanks, Mayor. My question for you, the $5 million proposed, which budget, which bucket is going to come from?
So that one is the undesignated. I have it written down because it was kind of a long word. It was the bond funds, the same bond funds that for Royal. So I had the reimbursement will be paid back with a combination of water, sewer, and general funds. And so Kim can correct me if I'm not saying that right.
So this evening there's a reimbursement resolution. So initially, if we started spending money now before any bonds were issued, it would come a portion from general fund, undesignated fund balance, and a portion from undesignated retained earnings of the water sewer fund, because water sewer has people in that building also. So they would pay for a portion of this.
Portion.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the $5 million? Is that just or how precise do you have to get on these reimbursement agreements, I guess? I mean, is that just sort of an estimate at this point? Because, I mean, we're real preliminary at this point, right? So we just do a reimbursement agreement up to a certain amount, and then it covers, I don't know.
So the reimbursement amount is what we anticipate the bond sale to be.
Okay.
If they start doing design work and the amount grows, then we would bring another reimbursement resolution back to you if we needed to add money to it.
Okay. So what we anticipate is what goes into it.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And we did go through just budgetary preliminary numbers and sizing prior to this to make sure that we were correct in the assumption that this was enough money. So we were confirmed with Corrigan that what we had anticipated was the budget, and it was.
Okay. All right.
So we're not completely,
right.
We'll be very close to ballpark.
Okay.
Under.
Mark?
Sure, good. Million questions. So can you explain to me in day-to-day operations of the service center where the need for locker rooms come in? I'm sure there's a reason why.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, I've been in there during shift change of parks. If they all come in at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock at shift change, you have like 36 people come in and trying to change their clothes and go to the restroom and clock out and get out the door, and there starts to become a big traffic jam. I haven't verified, but I was told that there were 2 urinals in there. I haven't gone in there. I tried to take a picture, and there's always somebody in there. So I know what's on the one I can go to.
Yeah.
But they were like, if we reorganize with the space that we have, we're actually removing restrooms and locker space instead of giving. They also have uniform bins that are in there. So when we change uniforms and launder them, there's a big area that's taken up from the uniforms. In the area that the women's is really actually unisex, and there's an aftermarket locker that's in there that's just not ADA compliant because it takes up the whole room. And so there's just a lot of space that's not functioning.
So it's the nature of the role that you need to change
and
clothes. It's not like you going into your office and sitting there all day.
Right, and water sewer, I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
the sewer guys come in, but you don't want to wear that home.
Yeah, exactly.
So they do change and shower in there regularly.
So
in parks
this
as well.
isn't something that's just nice to have. It's really
Absolutely, for the line of
necessity
work that
for
they have.
yeah.
Yeah, the office people like me, we don't need that.
Thank you for the visual.
Sure.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Sure. And if you think of anything else, feel free to just email me and I can.
So we will take the authorization of the reimbursement resolution as your indication, because her question was, can we move forward? So the reimbursement resolution, if you approve that this evening, that gives us the indication that, yes, within the next step will be the RFQ, and we'll be going through that process.
Does that necessarily mean that we agree with the preliminary programmatic requirements?
Because you haven't got there yet.
Well, when I saw that learn thing.
Right, no, that's a later.
To be truthful, I was not in favor of the life safety part.
Sure.
And continuing, adding on to that, right? That's not something I want to do.
The program and the design will all be part of the next step. So that's how we're going to take that this evening.
Okay. Don?
I do have one question. The reimbursement agreement is going to be $5 million for this project. Will we have, because aren't there going to be other projects in the bond issuance eventually?
Yes.
Royal and maybe even some other things.
So the reimbursement resolution covers Royal, the Service Center, Fire Station 1, and the water sewer project.
So it will cover all of that.
Right. So as an example, you're going to get a presentation, not tonight, but later about Fire Station 1. Y'all get to choose whether or not we go forward with the relocation of Fire Station 1. All the reimbursement resolutions just sets us up so that if we go forward and the bond is issued, then that can be reimbursed, or you can choose not to reimburse it and just use fund balance as an example.
And so there was a max of what, 38, or is that the number or something like that? 38 million or something for the whole reimbursement. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Anybody else? Item D is discussion regarding a request from the Coppell Historical Society to donate a home to be placed in Heritage Park. Ms. Carpenter.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jessica Carpenter, Director of Parks and Recreation. And I'm here tonight to bring forward a request from the Coppell Historical Society to donate a home to the city to be placed into Heritage Park. At the end of this presentation, I'll be asking for council's feedback and general direction regarding your desire of whether or not, apologies, Mr. Long, we'll see you later. I'll start over. So I'm here to bring forward a request from the Coppell Historical Society to donate a house to the city to be placed into Heritage Park. At the end of this presentation, I'll be asking for council's feedback on their desire of whether or not to accept this donation. So the home, built in 1905, is currently located at 532 South Coppell Road. The current homeowners, Jean and Dave Murph, wish to donate the home to the city. The homeowners have also expressed their desire to cover the cost to relocate the home from its existing location to its proposed location into Heritage Park. So the proposed new location for the home here is Heritage Park, located about 0.4 miles from the current location of the home. Heritage Park is located at 700 South Coppell Road. The proposed spot for the property would be there in the circle, just south of the Infeld house. Once the home has been relocated, if council desires for us to move forward, the city will take possession of the property as well as all future care and maintenance as we do for the current 4 properties existing into Heritage Park. The Coppell Historical Society has also communicated their desire for the property to be used as a visitor center. So I'd kind of like to talk just through a couple of high-level next steps should council desire to accept the donation. First, the Historical Society would work with an architect to ensure that the house will fit in the desired location, meet the setback requirements, etc. Staff in the Historical Society would work together through the permitting process. We would be working with community development on that. We would also work with city attorney on a donation agreement, as well as potentially an agreement on the proposed future use as a visitor center. Our facilities team would also be heavily involved to conduct a full assessment of the condition of the home. We would need to ensure it's fit for public access, ADA requirements, etc. So that's just kind of a high-level overview of just our next steps should council desire to move forward. So again, I'm asking for council's feedback on your desire to accept the donation of the house to the city, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And this evening we also have Chris Long, the president of the Historical Society, with us, and she's also more than happy to answer any specific questions that you may have.
Council?
So, I'm sorry.
Don, so what is sort of the ongoing tab for maintenance, or, I mean, once it gets in place, and sort of,
Right.
what's the ongoing, and where does it get funded? I mean, what bucket do we fund it out of, or how does that
So,
get to?
yeah, I have a little bit of information just on kind of what these properties right now are costing the city in terms of just utilities.
Okay.
So we have just some averages right now. Annually for these 4 properties, it costs about $1,147 just in electric costs. So adding a 5th property, just an average, there would be an additional $250 to $300 a year. So really a negligible amount to just hook up the house and get it added. There will be an initial cost to establish water sewer and get that hooked up initially, but the ongoing maintenance is negligible. I'm told that the condition of the current home, both inside and outside, is good. Obviously, we would conduct a full assessment there, and we don't see that there would be a lot of need for repairs or anything exterior-wise. And then it would just go into the slate of our current properties that facilities would then maintain as well.
So we're ultimately talking, so a house that's probably valued, I mean, I don't know what it would be valued at on the open market now, but, well, I'm just trying to think what from a maintenance standpoint, because there will be CapEx over time, I mean, or maintenance over time on this thing, just to rent it, I mean, to keep it up. Maybe it isn't significant, as I'm talking out loud, if you, I mean, thinking out loud, if you can figure that out. Maybe it's not a significant number ultimately. I just know that's the big question, is sort of the ongoing tab here. So I'll be quiet. Go ahead. No. Mark's next.
So, the question about hotel tax covering a visitor center?
Well,
If that was-
using that term visitor center is a little bit different than what they're talking about in terms of with Heritage Society, right? It's more historical, and so there is that portion of the fund that could go to, right, that's correct. It could. Yes, it could. As the rest of that statement is, we're just now starting to build, as far as revenues in that, and so it's not something that we tap into now to take care of Heritage Park. But is it something we could in the future? Sure.
And then the second question I had, so looking at that, it looks really tight there. And you said we're going to engage an architect, because when I look at what the assumed property line would be between the relocated building and the Infeld house, I'm wondering if we might have some issues in terms of, I don't know what kind of windows are in both of those buildings. We would have any issues, do you think?
That's going to be fun.
Right. Right. I know that they've been working with facilities on that too. I don't know if that's a, go measure and find out.
Right,
That's part of the
yeah.
investigation.
Well, yeah. So, but do you have to, do you accept it and we're now responsible for it, even if it won't go into that?
Oh, no,
site?
I mean, the process would be first the investigation.
Okay.
And the site plan,
Mhm.
and the evaluation, all that. But we don't start that until we hear, is it something that you have a green light for to start that process?
Correct.
That's the question that's being asked.
Yes.
How many square feet is a house?
Chris, it was like 700 or 800 square feet.
Yes,
It's a very small home.
Very small.
Okay.
Mhm.
I was thinking the same thing,
Yeah,
but it is small.
very small.
Kevin?
So I see that the MRFs they're willing to physically pay, to physically move the house up there. So the city would be responsible for setting the foundation and hooking up the sewer, water, all of that stuff, right?
Right, that would be part of the process, yeah, we would work through.
Okay, so that's all, like, obviously donating the house itself and then the cost, so that's all that they are saying that they will cover?
I believe Chris has also said that they may cover some exterior improvements as well.
Yeah, and the foundation is actually put down when the house is moved. Okay, and that is part of the cost of the move.
Oh, okay, so they will.
Now,
do
the sewer and
foundation.
water, we haven't gotten there yet. I'm sure we will get there yet. But, and then we may have some money left over that we will also look at the outside improvements.
And then, second part of the question is there any, obviously the property where the building is being located from, is there any idea of future use of that property, if it's going to be developed or anything like that?
Yes.
I think there was
Chris Collins is looking at it to do the work, because, you know, he's got some on that street already. Now, they don't have contract on it, but
Yeah.
that is being talked about, yes.
Okay.
And he wants the house gone, that's kind of what his facility, you know, made it sound.
There you go, there's all the mechanisms
Yeah.
there to try to put it all together.
So we actually don't have any estimated costs for architect or anything like that.
So that would be covered by the Historical Society. I believe Chris has already reached out to Greg.
Yeah, I need to correct that.
Bring on that.
Because we were on a call, and we were told the city would pay for the architect.
Yes, that has been discussed too. That's just
I
the
just
initial
wanna make
phases.
that-
We haven't moved forward with anything further until we had this discussion
No,
tonight.
yeah, no, so.
So our next step is give you a yay to investigate further?
Correct, and I can either bring back additional information and we can have the discussion again, or I can work through Mike and then we can just move forward from there.
Kind of a odd question, but do you happen to have an idea of ballpark, the last time a home was moved into Heritage Park, what the all-in cost was on that?
So, I don't know that
It was the
there
Infeld house.
That was the last one.
Right. And the
I know it's a reach, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was back when Clay was city manager, so that was like in 15, 16, somewhere right in there.
We can go research. There's agreements out there that we can go look at. I know the process was different because we were doing some things with the actual land at that time, so the agreements were different. But we can do some more research on that.
Okay.
And on the house itself, the Historical Society did all the work on the house because they made it into a meeting room or meeting space, I should say.
Yes, and Mike, if you don't mind me saying, the cost to move the Henfield house in was covered by a foundation. It was not covered by the city.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Don?
Well, I'm in favor of continuing down, going forward with the path and everything. I do have one question, and maybe you said a while ago and I missed it. What is it being used for? Is somebody actually living there today, or is it being used?
The home is still privately owned, but I don't think it's occupied 100% of the time today.
It is not.
It is not, okay. It's not a commercial business though right now?
Oh, no, it
No,
was
it's a
a
residence.
Residential, okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, what year was built that house?
1905.
1905? Thank you.
I'm all for moving forward.
Moving forward with the investigation, so at least, right now, we don't have enough information to make a decision, so she's gonna come back with enough financial that we'll be able to determine where we wanna go.
Just out of curiosity, if this does actually get moved, is there I'm not sure, is that additional spaces that could have additional, I guess, houses moved there? Is there?
Are you talking about the property to the west, the vacant lot? So that is additional space that's currently a part of Heritage Park right now.
Okay.
The Historical Society has expressed desire to have that space remain open. They do host events, they have Pioneer Days there, they utilize that open lot for a lot of different uses right now.
I'm in favor.
Okay. All right. All right.
Great.
Got the marching orders.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Somebody go fetch Cliff.
We are 7:25. I tell you what, we need to get through the code of conduct because it is on the agenda tonight. So item E is discussion regarding the proposed code of conduct. Bob?
Then we need to get Mr. Cliff back.
Oh, yes. Could y'all, Chris, could you send Cliff back in, please?
You know which one he is? I don't know if she knows who it is.
Yes.
You're lipping. I broke my leg. I have a limp now. You knew I broke my leg. 2 years ago during COVID. No, I knew because we weren't at the meeting.
I don't think I did know that.
Yeah.
I wasn't
a
around.
bicycle accident. Yeah. So when I sit for a while, when I get up. I know, you just. It's ridiculous. I'd rather you get kicked out of the meeting and go to jail.
You got my back.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Mayor and council, this is the code of conduct. We visited with about this in a work session on March 22nd. As a result of that workshop, you made some suggestions. I redid the ordinance in accordance with your suggestions. And I've got, there's two components to this. One, changed Article 210, which is on your agenda tonight. And then the new code of conduct, the code of ethics, which will be a new chapter 1A. And I don't, since we had such short time, I'd like to see if there's any questions about what we've done there or any changes you want to make before we go forward.
Kevin?
I just want to just be clear that let's say we run into a hypothetical situation where we disagree with we as the city council disagree with special counsel's findings. We still have some sort of trigger or mechanism to continue a code of conduct investigation if we choose?
No.
Okay.
That wasn't changed because I didn't get an indication that you wanted to change it. If you ultimately, any board and commission member that you appoint, you have the authority to dismiss them. And we talked about that, and I'll be bringing back to make sure that's uniform through all your boards and commissions, because you did express that. Yes. This was done first. So if there's members of the board and commissions that you're dissatisfied with, feel they're not serving the public purpose, then you have the right to remove.
So that's our fail. That would be our fail-safe if we feel like special counsel hasn't done, let's say, their due diligence.
Or you disagree with their findings.
Disagree with their
and
findings.
So the ethics thing is set aside, so if they were dismissed, it was because of want of confidence in their ability.
But we wouldn't go down the path of doing the code of conduct investigation. We would just take it upon ourselves as a council to choose to dismiss that person as a body
if you chose.
If we chose. Okay, thank you.
EJ?
Thanks, Mayor. Bob, question for you. 210.2,
yes.
Second paragraph. In the event a complaint concerns the mayor or mayor pro tem, such person or person shall be replaced by a member of the city council drawn by a lot. Can you explain the lot? I never participated in a lot process.
Put your name in a hat and draw it.
Okay, who's going to be drawing the city secretary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Don?
I do, thought I had something.
Well, you
Did I look like I have something?
Yes, you did. You did.
The new board, or the new,
Panel.
the new panel, yeah, the new panel, what's the next step? I mean, if it goes into place, do we do interviews now? Do we do interviews this fall to seat people on the panel, or is it just up to our discretion when we seat people?
It would really be up to your discretion, assuming we don't get a complaint.
Right.
You could wait until you do your annual appointments. But if you have a new board, you generally, and in the past, have filled it at your discretion with instructions to the city secretary to bring you forth the names to make the appointment.
Because it is true after if this ordinance passes, I mean, it's the next, I mean, it's in place, right? So the next step would be actually to fill the panel. It'd just be a matter of timing on that, okay?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions for Bob on the language? Kevin?
Just one last thing. It was getting late when we were in that work session discussing this. Do we do 2-year terms? Is that? I did not know where to find that. I missed it when I was going through.
I don't think I put a term on that.
Yeah, I don't think you put.
I could not remember what we discussed as in that work session, so.
I think we discussed just 2 year.
Yeah, but it's not, I don't think it's all in.
Was it 2-year?
I'll just add 210.2, city council shall appoint 3 to 9 persons for a 2-year term to be eligible for selection. Or do you want to do it every year?
I think we had discussed 2 years. Is that
We
correct?
talked about it, but I don't think we made a decision.
I think that's,
Two things.
I think that's
Two-year
good.
Do you want to alternate?
I don't know if it matters to alternate.
Staggered?
I think because it was that panel,
Right.
and it had met so infrequently. I just wanted to make sure, I didn't see that, so I just wanted to confirm that.
You're correct, it's not in there.
Okay.
I don't think we should necessarily stagger. I don't know if there's necessary.
There's no need for continuity.
Not on this, not on this one.
I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times we've even had to even think about meeting somebody.
Right.
Let's do a 2-year term.
2-year. Okay.
Good catch, Kevin.
Hey, I do my homework. I feel like I'm wearing a dunce cap.
That's for the picture.
Anybody else?
Do you want the same with special counsel then?
I would be.
Yeah, I'd be in
Yeah,
favor
I
of
think
it.
so.
Are we just picking one special counsel?
I only did one, we just don't seem to have much interest, but you could appoint more.
No, I just wondering. 'Cause I think that there was mention about back in the days, there was more than one.
Yeah, we used to have like 4 or 5 lawyers and sign up, and because they never were utilized, I think people became less interested.
Alternative might be good, just in case if they're not able to take.
Or they may
on-
have a conflict.
Yeah.
What if I just put an S after it, then you can, or do you want a certain number? I think it's less important for special counsel because we could just rotate them around. And
Sure.
hopefully they'd be qualified when you interview them, so you.
But, yeah, having an alternate just in case it might be.
In case you're busy
No need
Yeah.
to.
or out of town.
Right.
Back ourselves
In
into a
trial.
corner.
So,
Well, if there was, for example, if we had special counsel and they had a conflict or were unable to serve, then we'd have to maybe call a special meeting to get someone to come in and take that out. So it's probably a good idea. I just added the word S after counsel and just put parentheses S, so it allows you to appoint more than one
Yeah, that works.
for a 2-year term.
yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right, thank you very much.
I will note those when we take that up.
All right.
In the
On the
larger
floor.
room. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the time is 7:31. We're going to recess from work session. We have one item left, which is the American Rescue Plan Funds update. We'll take care of half of that after our regular session.
Or, Mayor, we can push that to the
Okay.
26th.
All right,
It's
so-
just because there's multiple public hearings tonight.
That's true. It's going to be a long night. Shall we push consensus of the group? F is not critical that we do it tonight. Push it to the next.
Nothing pressing on that.
I'm okay with pushing it back.
Okay, so we will defer item F to the next, to a later
Yeah,
work
you
session.
just pull it and then you can close your work session.
So we are, the time is 7:32 and work session is adjourned and we will move into regular session. Thank you everybody for good discussion tonight.
There's a lot of reading going on there.
Pardon the delay. We will be reconvening when we have a quorum. Good evening, everybody. The time is 7:39 and we're reconvening into regular session. As a reminder, persons wishing to speak during our citizens' appearance must sign the appropriate register outside the council chambers and list their residence address. The city secretary did let me know that we are missing a couple of the forms, so if those were inadvertently picked up by anyone, she would appreciate those be returned. Our first item on the agenda tonight is our invocation, which will be led by Manessa Grisham of the Generate Life Church. We'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance after that, so please stand for our invocation.
Thank you. Father God, we just thank you for the opportunity that we have as citizens of America to come together and to plan our community. I thank you for the men and women that are represented here tonight, and I just ask that you would guide them in all things and in all directions. I pray blessings upon them and their family, and the sacrifice of their time would be rewarded back to them tenfold. Thank you, God, again for this opportunity for us to come together. We ask that you bless this and keep us all safe this evening. Amen. He's a future fireman, if you can't tell, and that's my son, Braden.
And I think we just embarrassed him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, good job.
Okay, item number 6 is our citizens' appearance. Persons wishing to speak must sign the register and list their residence address. Quite honestly, we had nobody sign up today. I'll just add in, we have the form. Was there a signature on that one? Please come give it to our City Secretary, Ms. Owens. Is this for the public hearing or citizens' comments? Okay. So persons wishing to speak must sign the register. Each speaker must state his or her name and list their address. Presentations by individuals shall be limited to 2 minutes each. An individual speaker time may be extended for an additional 2 minutes with the approval of the majority of the council members. Persons signed up to speak will be called in the order that they signed up. No personal attacks by any speaker shall be made against any member of the council, mayor, individual group, or corporation. Once the timer sounds at 2 minutes, the city secretary will cut in and break and make the request to the mayor and council if they would like to extend the speaker's time to an additional 2 minutes. Sir, your name and address, please.
My name is Lee Haskin. I have Martinizing Cleaning at 420 South Denton Tap Road. And I'm here today to talk about the construction on Denton Tap. I've been in business here almost 20 years. We moved from where Anna Mia's was in the Tom Thumb Shopping Center 7 years ago to 420 South Denton Tap. I employ 14 people, and we made it through the pandemic. Didn't have to lay anyone off or anything else. But now we have a new challenge. At the end of February, we noticed there was all sorts of traffic backing up. Lo and behold, I thought it was an accident. Find out that 4 lanes are now down to 2. My business has dropped 21% March this year to 2019. So far to April, it's dropped 27%. It's all because no one goes down there. So my question is, well, after several calls, I found out that this is a project for 458 days. I don't know if it continues, if I'm going to be able to survive. It's as simple as that. We're in the service business. The reason I moved down there is for visibility, and we have a drive-up lane. So my question to the council is, what opportunities what I have for this construction.
Thank you very much for your comments. We do have a process for this. Our city staff will be getting back in touch with you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was the only person on the list.
Thank you. So item number 7, we have items 7 and 8. We have 2 proclamations, and bear with me just a moment. Our first proclamation is honoring the month of Ramadan. And Mohammed, I believe you have a group of folks you might like to bring forward. Council, for your consideration. Whereas Ramadan is the holiest month of the Islamic calendar and marks the first revelation of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and whereas Ramadan lasts 29 to 30 days based on the timing of the crescent moon, and whereas Muslims around the world observe the month by fasting each day from sunrise to sunset, and whereas the daily fasting, the breaking of the fast called iftar, is often celebrated by family and community gatherings, and whereas Ramadan is regarded as a time for spiritual reflection, increased awareness, and giving to the global sick, poor, and hungry, and a bridging of differences between people over a shared commitment to faith, and whereas Ramadan reminds us that Muslims have made extraordinary contributions to our country, and whereas Ramadan, the 9th month of the Muslim calendar year, is a time of introspection and spiritual renewal for Muslims worldwide, and whereas the end of Ramadan is commemorated by the Eid al-Fitr, breaking of the fast, a joyous occasion marked by sharing of sweets, gifts, and good tidings with family, friends, and neighbors. And whereas Coppell recognizes Muslims around the world celebrating Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr this year. Now, therefore, I, Wes Mays, Mayor of the City of Coppell, do hereby proclaim April 2nd through May 1st, 2022, as the month of Ramadan. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Coppell to be affixed this 12th day of April, 2022. Council? Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the agenda item number 7, consider the approval of a proclamation celebrating April 2nd through May 1st, 2022 as the month of Ramadan and authorizing the mayor to sign.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councilmember Nevels. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Long, Carol Nevels, John Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Mohammed, would you have anything to say?
I always have something to say. What kind of question is it? We appreciate that, the Honorable Mayor and Honorable Council members. I've been a resident of this city for 30 years. I've been proud of Coppell and continue to be proud of it. And everywhere I go, I brag about the way we conduct business in this city and the sense of inclusion that we have here. We appreciate you and we appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 8 is consider approval of a proclamation designating the week of April 17th to 23rd as Volunteer Week in the City of Coppell and authorizing the mayor to sign. Council, for your consideration. Oh, do we have I believe we have a group. Janine and Emma, are you here? Come on down. I'm sorry. You needed to stand up and yell at me. And any other volunteers that are with us tonight? Whereas the entire community can inspire, equip, and mobilize people to take action that changes the world, and whereas volunteers can connect with local community service opportunities through hundreds of community service organizations, and whereas individuals and communities are at the center of social change, discovering their power to make a difference, and whereas experience teaches us that government by itself cannot solve all of our nation's social problems, and whereas National Volunteer Week was established in 1974 and has grown exponentially each year, and whereas during this week, all over the nation, service projects will be performed and volunteers recognized for their commitment to service, and whereas our city's volunteer force is a great treasure and is vital to the city of Coppell's future as a caring and productive community. Now therefore, I, Wes Mays, Mayor of the City of Coppell, do hereby proclaim April 17th through 23rd, 2022 as Volunteer Week in the city of Coppell, Texas, and urge all citizens to volunteer, inspiring, recognizing, and encouraging people to see out imaginative ways to engage in our community. In witness thereof, I've set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Coppell to be affixed this 12th day of April, 2022. Council, do I have a motion? Councilmember Nevels, second, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move to approve Agenda Item 8, considering approval of proclamation designating the week of April 17th through 23rd, 2022 as Volunteer Week in the City of Coppell, and authorize the Mayor to sign.
Thank you for keeping me straight. Do I have a second? Councilmember Long, all in favor?
Long, Carol, Nevels, Jen, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Now, I know I was going to hand the microphone over. I'm not exactly sure what we have coming up, except I know that we do have a little event on the 23rd that I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit about. And I think I got my marching orders today on that one, so I'll let you guys talk about it.
Basically, what we're here to talk about is our volunteers for all departments and all facilities in the city make our city a better place, and we thank them every single day for all the service that they provide for us.
Well, thank you very much. It's volunteers throughout the city that make Coppell the city that it is, and we certainly appreciate all of our thousands of volunteers that do service hours all over the city and for everyone here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. No problem.
Okay, item number 9 is our consent agenda. This agenda is routine in nature and generally enacted in one motion. These items have been previously approved through the budget or past council actions. Any item may be pulled and considered separately. Full descriptions are available on the screen. Council, is there any desire to have an item pulled and considered separately? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Hill.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items 9A through H.
Thank you. Councilmember Carroll has seconded. All in favor?
Long, Carol, Nevels, Jen, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item number 10. Ms. Perrone-Boswell, would you please read the item into the agenda, into the record?
Yes, sir. Agenda item number 10 is a public hearing. Consider approval of PD 290-89R-C CISD 9th grade center locker room building addition, a zoning change request from PD 289-C to PD 289R-C to revise the plan development and approve a 2,800 square foot locker room on 51.59 acres of land located at the southwest quadrant of Wrangler Drive and Crestside Drive at the request of Coppell Independent School District, being represented by Robert Howman of Glenn Engineering. So good evening, Council. My name is Mary Pearl Boswell.
And excuse me real quick, this is
Yes,
a
sir.
public hearing, and so we're opening the public hearing, and go ahead and present.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. So the Coppell 9th Grade Center is located at the southwest quadrant of Wrangler Drive and Cresside Drive. This is an overall site plan of the facility. The baseball fields are located at the southwest portion of the site, identified in the green. The addition of the locker room is outlined in red, and it is the yellow building. So as you notice, it's interior to the site, and it is close to the existing ball fields. So the CISD application, they're requesting to build a 2,800 square foot locker room. It's located close to existing concession stands and existing parking. There will be a new sidewalk constructed, new paving up to the building, which is identified in yellow. So the building will be used for the existing baseball and softball fields. It will also have a storage space and change room for the referees. So there are no proposed changes to the parking area. There are currently 629 spaces on site, and there are no landscaping changes proposed either. In terms of the building itself, it's approximately 18 feet, 10 inches in height. The primary color of the building will be a pink ruby split face with 2 horizontal lines in an Austin limestone. So this building will match the existing concession stand that is located just across from it. The roof will be a charcoal gray standing seam metal roof. Signage on the building will consist of Coppell Cowboy Star logo and the words Coppell ISD Baseball and Softball Complex written in 18-inch cast aluminum letters and brushed stainless. And so in terms of the lettering for this building, we did look at, there's a long side of the building and a short side of the building. So it's kind of like a shotgun style building. So the one minor thing was we took the long side of the building to allow for the signage to exist versus the short side of the building, which is only about 37 feet wide. So they will have to get a sign permit for the signage, which is approximately 67 square feet. So we did send out notices as required by state law within 200 feet, 8 notices, an additional 9 notices within 800 feet that we do send out as a courtesy, and we received no responses. So the P&Z did recommend approval of PD 289R-C, Coppell 9th Grade Center Locker Room Building, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the signage be approved as shown, and 2, that a sign permit would be required. That is the end of my presentation, and there is someone here from the school board to answer any questions as well.
Council, any questions? Does the applicant have any comments to make?
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Dennis Womack, 200 South Denton Tap Road, Coppell. And I have no additional comments, but I don't represent the board. I represent the school district, just on that little piece. And I appreciate your consideration and approval.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. We had nobody signed up to speak, so in absence of that, does council have any other comments or questions to ask of either staff or the applicant, the school district? Councilmember Carroll.
Well, I will entertain closing the public session, right? Public hearing. I move to close the public hearing, item number 10, and move to approve with conditions.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Councilmember Hill. All in favor?
Long, Carroll, Neville's, Dunn, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item number 11 is a public hearing. I open the public hearing and ask Mr. Steer to read the item into the record.
Mayor, Council, good evening. This is item number 11 this evening. Your second public hearing is to consider approval of a zoning change to PD 113R SF9 to allow for an 18-foot 8-inch rear yard setback for a building addition to support special accommodations for a disabled resident on 8,400 square feet of property located at 416 Pecan Hollow Drive at the request of Ed Guiafaro, representing Dr. John E. Beckway. So this property is zoned PD 113 SF9, and the zoning was approved in September 1990, and the preliminary plat was approved December of that year. This is a request to revise the rear yard setback from the required 20 feet to 18 feet 8 inches for the conversion of the existing garage into living accommodations for a resident with special needs. A new, slightly wider garage is proposed to be added to accommodate the specialized vehicle for the resident. And this type of addition would typically go through the regular permitting process without the need for a zoning action. But because it encroaches into the 20-foot rear yard, it does require an amendment to the Planned Development District. After the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the building permit was reviewed, and the permit shows an additional cooktop in the renovated space, and this typically would not be allowed in combination with a bedroom and a bathroom because it would technically be another dwelling unit on a single-family property. Because the addition of the second cooktop is an accommodation for the special needs of the occupant, staff is supportive of the request and has added a condition to the recommendation per the advice of the city attorney. Staff's worked with the applicant to amend the original setback request from 16 feet originally proposed to 18 feet 8 inches to allow enough room for a vehicle to park in the driveway. And the garage addition's also been increased in width from 20 feet to 25 feet to better serve the accessibility needs. So here are the elevations. They're proposing to match the existing brick on the proposed addition. We sent out 39 notices within 200 feet to surrounding property owners as required by state law. One was returned in favor, and I had a meeting with the HOA, and they too were in favor. We sent out 261 courtesy notices within the 800 feet, and an email was received in opposition to the request stating that they do not feel the work will be completed to a minimum standard required by the city and county ordinances and will negatively affect neighboring properties. So I reached out to the respondent asking for an address, and they didn't respond to me. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of PD 113R SF9 subject to the following condition: that additional comments may be generated upon detailed building permit reviews, and then the added condition of the addition of a second cooktop is an accommodation for special needs of the occupant. If the occupant ceases to live in the home, then the cooktop shall be removed. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions. The applicant is in the audience if you have any questions for him. And a reminder, this is a public hearing.
Okay. Does the applicant have any comments to make at this time?
Yes, I do. Good evening. Good evening, sirs. I here have the privilege to talk to you with regards to the issue, the issue we have. I'm Dr. Johnny Bekwe, and we've been in Coppell here for almost 20 years at 416 Pecan Hollow Drive. And we all lived peacefully here until 2018. And my daughter was involved in a very serious accident. We didn't think she was going to survive. She had spinal cord injury, the spinal cord level C6, C5, C6, with the vertebrae, with a break at the vertebral level C5, C7, and the spinal cord was one way, and the bones were in another way. We never believed any doctor could do that job, but a professor at the University of Southwestern Center said he was capable of doing it. They had about 12-hour surgery, and then rehabilitation took another 12 months. He came out, but we realized that he was completely disabled. For me, that's the functions above the fracture were gone, and below the fracture were gone. So lifestyle changed, and she is there. But we realized that the court that was handling this case decided that it was an issue of crime. She was classified as the crime victim. The doctors who did all the management sent in letters to say her accommodation will have to be modified to make her life meaningful. And then we sent application to everywhere where we could get assistance. The Attorney General of Texas, because it's a crime case, had interest in this case, was able to send in a little amount of money, but reasonable enough, and then asked us to do all our best to see the completion of a modification, not luxury, but just to fit the disability. Then we realized we have to come to Coppell to solicit your assistance. And we were able to meet Matt Stairs. He's been very helpful. And then we had an engineer there, a contractor, who said he could do this job, he could manage it. And that's why we're here. We're asking you to show your sympathy. This is a citizen of Coppell. Had high school here, middle school, high school here, before she went to the university. Fortunately, 3 months after she left, she came out of university with double master's degree. 3 months after coming out of university, this accident occurred. We realized that the burden has fallen back to us. So we're asking you to help us this evening. You give us the approval so that we can make her life meaningful here in Coppell. That's our mission this evening.
Thank you very much.
My
Council,
pleasure.
any questions? Councilmember Nevels.
Thank you so much for sharing your words and your story. Really appreciate that. Shira, I have a question for you. So on the second condition, if the occupant ceases to live in the home, then the cooktop shall be removed. What, for that particular step, what mechanism do we have in place to ensure that that step happens on that condition?
Okay, so during the run-through, Tracy advised that we talked to utility billing, and we could flag it with their utility bill. So if there's a change in occupancy, then they'll notify us, and we'll notify the new resident that it needs to be removed.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Matthew?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We hear your story and we are here to help you.
Thank you.
if you don't have any additional questions, I'll make the motion.
Well, Councilmember, I think we'll get back to you in just a second. Councilmember John, you were first.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Steer, I just have a couple of questions I want to ask. I think you mentioned that there was one email opposition,
Yes, sir.
but has there been any other modification in this area, similar concept in the past?
Not to my knowledge.
So this is pretty much the first and probably the only one so far, right?
This would be the first PD modification, yes, sir.
Okay. And then you did say that the HOA was in favor of
Yes, sir.
approving this modification as well.
Yes.
Okay. And I do want to say that, is it Dr. Ibekwe?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for the story, and I appreciate you telling us the story, and thank you again. And I understand how difficult it might be you're going through not only for your daughter, but for yourself as well. So thank you again for sharing that story.
Thank you. I appreciate your sympathy. Thank you.
Councilmember Hill.
Yes, I did have a question for the doctor.
Thank you. Yeah.
You asked for our help, and we're more than happy to provide it. And I'm going to give you a little bit of professional help. Do you have a van?
A van?
That garage door should be 8 feet tall. And your doors aren't wide enough. You really, to be accessible, you might want to have someone take a look at your door openings and your clearance around your doors, so your daughter can maneuver through the new space more easily. And I wish you all the best, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. With that, I'd like to close the public hearing and approve the agenda item number 11 with the conditions.
And I have a second by Councilmember Nevels. All in favor?
Long, Carol, Nevels, Jen, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments tonight, and good luck. Item number 12 is a public hearing. I open the public hearing and consider approval of an ordinance of the City of Coppell, Texas, readopting, ratifying, and republishing and extending Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances, Article 9-19 Youth Camp Program Standard of Care, and authorizing the mayor to sign. Ms. Valencia Gilbert.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Valencia Gilbert, Recreation Coordinator at the Corps. This is routine in nature, and it is an annual review process in order to be exempt from the state of Texas licensing process for the youth camps. Camp Do It All is not a license by the state of Texas, therefore we abide by the standard of care that they put in place for municipal recreation programs. This year we have made a few minor changes in the standards which we are asking for approval. Camp Do It All is a very successful day camp program offered to children ages 6 to 12. The program is offered during all Coppell ISD major holidays, including summer, Thanksgiving, winter holiday, and spring break, for a total of 15 weeks out of the year, in which almost every week is highly sought out. We hold the camp at the Corps during the school holidays, and summer is held at a local elementary school, currently, which is Mockingbird Elementary. Each year we serve over 1,600 children combined during these breaks. We consistently have positive feedback from our community on our program and the amenities that it offers. Tonight we are recommending the approval of the camp standards of care for 2022, therefore asking you to approve this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. We had nobody signed up to speak. Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Gilbert? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion. Councilmember Nevels.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to close the public hearing and approve agenda item number 12, approving the ordinance for the City of Coppell, Texas, readopting, ratifying, republishing, and extending Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances, Article 9-19, Youth Camps, Programs, and Standards of Care.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Councilmember Long. All in favor?
Long, Carol, Nevels, Jen, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 13 is consider approval of an ordinance amending the current short-term rental ordinance found in Chapter 9, Article 9-19, Section 9-29-14 in the City of Coppell Code of Ordinances and authorizing the mayor to sign. Ms. Hurley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to bring you the proposed short-term rental ordinance for consideration and adoption. I'll wait for the present. Thank you. As I've done in the past, I will use STR when I'm referring to the short-term rental ordinance just for simplification purposes. So staff began discussing the STR ordinance with City Council in October of 2021. Our first conversations were in executive session because we were seeking legal advice from our city attorney. And after receiving that legal advice and also researching other ordinances and best practices from municipalities throughout the country, staff presented excuse me, the proposed changes to City Council on February 22nd, 2022. Throughout the entire process, staff has been focused on providing opportunities for community engagement and citizen input. And so staff made a presentation, just some of those examples are, staff made a presentation of the proposed changes at an HOA meeting that was organized by Gary Tennell with all the HOAs in the community. Staff provided opportunities for the current STR owners in to receive information about the proposed changes to the ordinance. And then finally, we kept a list of every citizen who contacted the Community Development Department over the last year that had any concerns or any input on the short-term or on the STR ordinance. And we emailed them every single time the STR ordinance was coming before City Council so that they were aware that they had an opportunity to come speak. Again, staff wanted to allow ample time for interested citizens to provide their input to City Council. Therefore, we waited until tonight's meeting to bring back the ordinance for City Council consideration. Staff has not received direction to make changes to the proposed ordinance, so therefore we're bringing it to you tonight on your agenda for consideration and adoption. I'm going to provide a quick recap of what is not changing in the ordinance as well as the proposed changes to the ordinance just so you all have those again. Sorry. So the following items are not changing. All properties are required to register to get a permit before operating a short-term rental. Applicants must prove the property as their primary residence. A local emergency contact must be provided. An inspection of the residence is scheduled after a permit has been applied for and issued. Sales and lodging taxes must be paid by the owners of an STR. An STR must meet all applicable city and state laws and codes. An STR cannot be used for the sole or primary purpose of having a party venue. All STRs must provide an informational brochure that is given to guests, giving them the rules by which they must abide. And these are all the items in the current ordinance that we have today that are not changing. Now I'll discuss the major proposed changes in this new ordinance. A number of definitions have been added to clear up any confusion about any terms used throughout the ordinance. STR permit holders will now reapply for a permit on an annual basis, which means an inspection must be completed each time a permit is issued. The revised ordinance clearly outlines what constitutes a violation, and new levels of enforcement have been established for STR properties that have violated the ordinance. The penalties vary from temporary suspensions to a permanent revocation of a permit, and the level of enforcement does increase as the frequency and/or severity of the violation increases. So before I move on to the additional changes, I want to spend a little time on those varying levels of enforcement. So the first level enforcement occurs when 2 or more of the following violations happen within a 12-month period and could lead to a permit being suspended for 150 days. Those are an STR operating in violation of building, fire, health, or safety codes. And there is a 10-day correction period allowed for these. Failure to pay applicable sales and lodging taxes, failure to pay an annual permit application fee, and failure to apply for an STR permit. The next level of enforcement occurs when any of the following violations occur and could result in the revocation of a permit for 1 year. An STR has more than one permit suspicion within a 12-month period. False or misleading application materials are provided. Continued operation of an STR during a suspension, and any conditions that would have warranted a denial of a permit at the time of application. And then the final level of enforcement occurs when there's a cumulative total of 4 or more of the following violations and could result in the permanent revocation of a permit. And those violations are an STR operating in violation of building, fire, health, and safety codes, failure to file or pay applicable sales and lodging taxes, failure to pay an annual permit application fee, failure to apply for an STR permit, false or misleading information contained in the application for permit, and operation of an STR during a permit suspension. And again, this is a cumulative total of 4 of those at any point. And so staff believes this gives clear guidance on what constitutes a violation that can result in the suspension or revocation of a permit. So now I'll continue with the other proposed changes. For any STR permit holders that wish to appeal a denied permit or the suspension or revocation of a permit, they do have a process to appeal to the Board of Adjustment, and they have a 10-day appeal timeline. As before, they would file with us and then would go to the Board of Adjustment for consideration. I'm sorry. Finally, the annual sunset review has been removed. Staff will continue to monitor the changing environment of STRs, and we will bring back forward any changes that we feel need to have attention paid to them. But also, City Council has the ability to revisit the ordinance at any time that they desire. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Hurley? Councilmember John.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of questions for clarification. Sure. You mentioned that the changes are, one of the changes are now they have to go and reapply annually.
Yes, sir.
And that's before, when they did not have to, I guess, reapply annually, were they still required to pay the fee annually each year as well?
Yes, sir. They had to renew their permit, but they didn't have to submit a new application every year.
Okay. And, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Nevels.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Hurley. Just a quick question about the brochure that you brought up. Does the brochure have to be approved annually as well? Is that part of the application process?
That is part of the application process.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And just kind of looking at the ordinance, it says that you have to file with it. Is that brochure, that is approved by city staff?
Yes, sir.
And that is part of the application process? I just want to make sure that that was not just put on file somewhere, but it is approved and vetted to make sure that it complies with all of the regulations that we have in place.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Councilmember John.
Sorry, I looked at my note and I missed it, but the feedbacks, I know you had meetings with the HOAs, and I know you had feedback from them as well as the STR owners as well. So what were the feedbacks about some of the changes here?
Sure. So a lot of the feedback that we received at the HOA meeting is the same feedback you all received during citizens' appearance at City Council. So a lot of the HOAs would like for the city to ban short-term rentals, and as we said from the beginning, We have tried to create an ordinance that balances the desires of those that want to have a short-term rental while also protecting the surrounding neighboring properties. So those were the primary input that we got. We did have some questions about parking, but unfortunately, parking on a public street is allowed today. So we have information in the ordinance about parking, but we cannot do anything if there is parking on a public street because that is allowed today. So those were the primary comments that we got.
What about from the STR owners? The current STR?
We really did not have a tremendous amount of feedback from the STR owners, except for those that didn't want changes that are more restrictive.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Carroll.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question, more operational in nature. So they have to collect the taxes, the hotel occupancy taxes, right, and submit them?
They are required to file and submit those to our finance department on a quarterly basis.
So is that part of the application operation? Is that part of the application process, like them becoming educated on how that process works or how they get set up to do that? Or, I mean, is there an education surrounding that piece? I'm just curious if we're collecting all the taxes that we should be.
We are not currently collecting all the taxes that we should be, and when we are made aware of the taxes not being paid, we do contact the STR owner. So it is part of, we've got information that's given to them about paying the hotel occupancy tax. There's also information on our website that's available to everyone that has to pay that fine, those taxes to the city. And so, and again, we contact them once we are made aware that they have not paid their their hot taxes on a quarterly basis.
And I guess I'm just sort of thinking out loud. So if you they have to reapply every year is the new stipulation, right? We have to go through an application process. So we potentially would catch some of that if we became aware of them. They have to come back in to reapply, and that would be part of the.
Well, once again, it is now part of our violations that if they're not paying those and they're not reconciling it after they've been made aware, that is a violation that counts against them that could end up in the temporary suspension or permanent revocation of a permit.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Council, any other questions for Ms. Hurley? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to accept. This isn't. No, this is not. I move to accept item 13. To approve item 13.
Thank you, sir, and seconded by Councilmember Carroll. All in favor?
Long, Carroll, Nevels, Dunn, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 14 is consider approval of a resolution expressing official intent to reimburse expenses associated with city facility street improvements, including related drainage, signalization, landscaping, sidewalks, lighting, and signage, streetscape improvements, and land acquisition, and acquiring, constructing, and installing equipping additions, improvements, extensions, and equipment for the city's waterworks and sewer systems prior to the issuance of bonds and authorizing the mayor to sign. Ms. Tien.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll try to make that longer next time.
Please
That
do.
was a lot.
Either that or you can read it.
Or I
next
can
time.
read it?
Yes.
So thank you. Passage of this agenda item will allow the approval of contracts for projects listed in the resolution to be awarded prior to the issuance of the bonds by allowing a temporary funding from the undesignated fund balance of the general fund and the undesignated retained earnings of the water and sewer fund, with a future reimbursement back to these funds from bond proceeds. Identifying an available funding source before approving a contract is required, so passage of this agenda item allows the city to identify a funding source prior to issuing bonds and then allowing the city to repay itself. The projects identified in the resolution are Royal Lane, the Service Center, Fire Station 1, and then various water and sewer projects. I would like to take a moment to point out a few items. First, approving this agenda item is not approving the projects. Each project would be brought forward to you for council's approval. This agenda item is also not approving a bond issue. The bond issue requires a notice of intent be given before issuing bonds, and then, of course, approval of the issuance of bonds. So the purpose of this agenda item is to provide a funding source and to provide notice of the intent to replenish the funds that are used if and when bonds are issued. If bonds are not issued, then the cost approved for different projects would remain a cost of the fund that paid for it. And so the fund balance of those, the general fund or the water sewer fund, whichever one was identified to pay for the project, that cost would stay in there, so the fund balance or retained earnings would be reduced. I would like to let you know that this agenda item was reviewed by legal counsel as part of the agenda packet, and that the resolution was prepared by the city's bond counsel. And finance does recommend approval of this agenda item, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Council, questions from Ms. Tien? Councilmember Carroll.
I was going to make a motion to approve item number 14.
Thank you very much. Is there a second from Councilmember Long? All in favor?
Long, Carroll, Neville's, Dunn, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 15 is consider approval to enter into an engineering design contract with Teague, Noll & Perkins for the reconstruction of Royal Lane in the amount of $1,403,000 provided in the undesignated fund balance and authorizing the city manager to sign all necessary documents. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. You heard Ms. Tien say that approval of actual items related to these projects would be before you. I'm before you. This is the first. This item is for the approval of a design contract for the Royal Lane reconstruction. This slide shows the overall limits of this project. Runs from Sandy Lake Road down to I-635 LBJ. Royal Lane, similar to Freeport Parkway and Beltline, was constructed beginning in the early and mid-1980s with a 25 to 30-year design life. Quick math tells you we have exceeded that original design life. 7 or 8 years ago, the city decided, knowing that those 3 arterials were going to reach the end of their life and need to be reconstructed, charted a plan to kind of lay out how we would do that. The decision was to begin with Freeport, since it's between Beltline and Royal. So we finished Freeport, moved to Beltline, which gives a reliever for the traffic from Beltline, and then we will move to Royal as soon as we're done with Beltline. That's the plan. So we're following our plan that was charted several years ago. This slide shows the northern portion of Royal Lane. It's kind of a zoomed in of the northern half. The plan is to do a partial overlay. If you've driven this recently, there are sections that have settled. We did a full overlay a few years ago. And even with that asphalt overlay in partnership with Dallas County, there's certain sections that have settled. So we are planning to do a partial overlay and level up those sections to get us through the next year or so until we can start the full reconstruction. And that is just simply to provide a safe riding surface for the next year plus. This slide is the southern half of the scope of the project. I would mention that the firm that's been selected, Teague, Noll & Perkins, was selected through a qualifications-based selection process. Every few years, the city goes out and requests statements of qualifications from engineering firms, and then we evaluate those based on a number of criteria. And we look for firms of different sizes, different capabilities, different specialties. Teague, Noll & Perkins is a full-service engineering firm. They're qualified and capable of doing this this project. And in addition, during design, staff will be reviewing the plans at 30%, 60%, 90%. We also typically will hire and have a third-party firm help us put another set of eyes on these plans. We find that useful because different firms have a different view and different approach to design. And a third-party firm would maybe look at the project from a different perspective, whether it's constructability or whatever it may be. So we will do that during the design process. Next few slides show some of the panels that have settled. We'll be leveling those up. They also highlight the fact that Royal has failed structurally. So the scope of the project is to completely remove the existing paving, subgrade. We will conduct analyses, condition assessments of the utilities, so water, sewer, and drainage utilities, to determine the extent of rehab or replacement that's needed. Our expectation, given the life of these, the utilities that exist here, is that we'll need to do some spot repairs. We will do rehab of and lining of all of the sanitary sewer manholes. The design includes basically a 50% redesign of the utilities. But again, that will be determined once we do that condition assessment. The scope includes full replacement of the paving, the subgrade, complete reconstruction of the paving itself, improvements at intersections, so think extension of turn lanes where they're needed, as well as re-landscaping the median. You can see from this photo, Royal's pretty much just some sod in the median, and our plan would be to replicate what we've done on our other utilities in Coppell with this project. So similar to Freeport, similar to Beltline and Sandy Lake Road. We expect construction, as I mentioned. The plan is to begin construction of Royal as soon as Beltline is finished. So we would design Royal over the next year, get through that, have it ready, teed up to bid and award as soon as Beltline is done. Obviously, that is contingent on funding. Planning for the bond fund or the bond sale next summer, as well as the reimbursement resolution that you just passed. Another slide showing some of the failures. Here we've got failures at curb inlets, failures along the lane, curb failures themselves. Based on initial estimates, we believe construction of Royal will take 12 to 15 months. Kind of similar to Beltline. We'll know more as we get into design. Current cost estimate is just under $18 million. Again, as we work through design, we will do everything we can, like we did on Beltline, to keep the costs down as much as we can. Let's see. Yeah, and again, as I mentioned, we don't anticipate a full reconstruction of the utilities on this project. Here's another project or another slide that shows some of the photos. These are marked areas, so these are our ones where we've gone out and actually marked where, or the county, our partner on this will actually go in and mill these out and do the partial overlay, the level up project. And with those slides, Public Works Department does recommend the approval of this contract with Teague, Nolan, Perkins in the amount of $1,403,000. Be happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. I have attended Commissioner J.J. Koch's presentation, and he had mentioned that funds available for construction. So my question is this design eligible for funding from Dallas County?
So what you would be talking about is was he specifically speaking of their MCIP program? Okay, we do have a number of projects that were selected through the county as part of their MCIP. And this is not one of those projects. This would not have been an eligible project because they weren't doing, if it was a new roadway construction, so greenfield, extension of Royal in an area where it didn't exist, it would have qualified, but they were not funding reconstruction projects as part of that call. Now, I will say the partial overlay that I mentioned that we will be doing, that is going to be conducted in partnership with Dallas County. Council's approved the PSA, if you'll recall, a couple months ago. I think it was $350,000. $100,000 of that will be used to do this partial overlay for Royal Lane. And I call it a partnership because it really is. We fund the cost of the materials. Dallas County comes in and funds the actual labor and the conduct of the work. So they bring their materials, their equipment in, their labor, and they do the work. We just fund the cost of the materials. Yes, sir.
I have a question. When we get ready to actually do Royal, the silver line should be at least structurally in place. It may not be operational by that point. Is there going to be any overlap in the crossings with the reconstruction?
There will be, and we have a line item in our design contract, as well as there will be money in the construction contract for coordination with DART in their contractor, Archer Western.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Councilmember John.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Collins, I know you said that you generally do this in a street construction, but are sidewalks also planned for this area as well?
Yes, sir.
For both sides?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any other questions? I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Nevels.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve agenda item 15.
And seconded by Councilmember Carroll. All in favor?
Long, Carroll, Nevels, John, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 16 is consider approval of an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 1 Administration by adding a new Chapter 1A Code of Ethics and Conduct and authorizing the mayor to sign. Mr. Hager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't know if you want to read the other item in too, since they're related, and we can discuss both of them at the same time.
I was going to make that offer, but I decided I'd defer to you. So yes, item number 17 is consider approval of an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 2 Boards and Commissions and adding a new Article 2-10 Special Legal Counsel Ethics Review Panel to establish an Ethics Review Panel and authorizing the mayor to sign.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. These items came to our attention as a result of a complaint that was filed late last year, early this year, concerning Code of Ethics. And in the process of handling that complaint, you as a council and me as a city attorney was able to review the Code of Conduct, and both of us had several questions. You had some changes you would like to see made. As a result of that, we repealed the old Article 1-13 back in February, and tonight was the night that I was supposed to bring the revised ordinance back to you, and that's what we've done. On March 22nd, we, in a very lengthy workshop session, we discussed some of the issues. I made the changes that were requested, and I will briefly go through what I've done. I have updated some of the policy and principles and some of the guidance there, tried to give more and easier to read definitions and application of the ordinance, took the employees out of the equation by having the employees are governed by personnel policies that are adopted by the city. And then I've updated the definitions that are appropriate for the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct and the Ethics Ordinance that you are to review tonight deals exclusively with members of the City Council and members of boards or commissions or panels that this body appoints and does govern the conduct of the city attorney's office and the municipal judge, which are also appointees of this body. One of the problems that we had with the old ordinance that was hard to read and it was hard to find conduct that was prohibited under the Code of Conduct and the Ethics. And so what I've done is separated out the Code of Conduct from ethical considerations versus state law violations, and hopefully tried to make it easier for you to, and for the public to read and understand and simplify. I did add an anti-discrimination clause, which was not in your previous ordinance, in 1A-2-3, which prohibits a city official from engaging in conduct while acting in their official capacity to engage in or excluding anyone based on their race, their ethnicity, their color, their age, their religion, marital and parental status, sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, other characteristics, national origin, disability, military veteran status, political opinions or affiliations, or other legally protected characteristics or status that which diminishes us and compromises our ability to fulfill our mission. So what we tried to do, obviously things have changed over the last 25 years with both social media and our outlook on life and how we treat each other, and hopefully it's more civil, but we needed to add those standards in there so it was clear to you and to the people you appoint as boards and commissions what the expectation of this body and of what our community is. I did provide ethics training for our boards and commission members, which we had not done, which I think is necessary for them to get this ordinance and understand what their obligations are as board members as they interact with members of the public, with each other, and with you. I tried to define a little more openly what a gift was and when a gift or a donation, when that's appropriate, when it's not appropriate. Obviously, the receipt by you of money for reimbursement for expenses does not amount to a gift for you because you pay it otherwise handsomely, the great sum of $0 every year for your fine service. So I tried to delineate in there to help you guide of when you go to lunch with somebody or if you attend an event, when it's appropriate for you to receive gratis or a benefit that may not be otherwise, and if it's of a de minimis value, that would not be deemed a violation. If you receive tickets to obviously a city event, event in Old Town or those kinds of things, we provide that to you. That does not violate the ordinance. I had some miscellaneous things. I've tried to, when donations are made to you in your capacity as a candidate, to exempt those things, obviously, or if you receive donations or make donations, and try to give you some guidance there, as well as nepotism, the idea that you have the right to represent yourself and any matter that comes before either the council or boards and commissions, but you do not have the right to represent the interests of others before those boards and commissions, since your fiduciary duty is to the citizens and to the council. I added a great deal of things involving what happens in your past life after you serve with us, about your ability to then either do business with the city or represent the interests of others before a board or commission of which you may have been a member or a member of this body going forward. I will give you an example that occurred in another one of my cities that I represent. We had a council member who was a developer, and he was a developer before he was a council member, and then he left the city council a year ago, and the other night he had a presentation where he was asking for an economic development grant as a developer. There's people in the community that were not happy about that, but that city did not have an ethical constraint against that behavior, and he was not disqualified. So I've tried to put in there, I know that that was one of the things that Mayor Sheehan, when she was mayor, we had a fair amount of past members of the council that were appearing before the council for interest of others, and that was always something that she was very keen on. That's been kept in this ordinance, moving forward with a little more hopefully a little more clarity. The procedures for a complaint are exactly the same as you had previously had. I broke it up a little bit so it was a little bit easier to read as far as how the complaint is generated, who it's filed with, that it's assigned to special counsel. The special counsel then files the report with the city. If there's cause to find that a council member or a member of a board and commission have violated, that it refers to the panel. What I've done now is take the appointment of the panel and the appointment of special counsel with your input and now move that into a separate ordinance so you can find that with the rest of the boards and commissions and other appointees of the city under the Code of Ordinances. So I've separated that out from underneath this. I did add a debarment that if you are on the council that you can't do business and have a contract with the city for a period of time. There's grounds to have that contract voided out or to have the contract not considered if under such representations, and then that business is what government lawyers call debarred from doing business with the city for a period of time because of their bad conduct. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. As the mayor has read, there are two ordinances. The first ordinance on your agenda is the actual code of conduct that was been revised and reviewed by you, and the second is moving the appointment of the special legal counsel and members of the panel, which will comprise board members, to Chapter 2, Boards and Commissions. I would note through your input, I've made the change to 2-10-1 to say Special Ethics Counsel or counselors in the event that it was pointed out in the event that there is only one special legal counsel, and if they were to have a conflict, then we wouldn't have a means, so you'll have more than one person you can appoint if this is enacted, and that they would be appointed for a 2-year term. So I made both those changes to 2-10-1 and 2-10-2, which both would serve for 2-year terms, members of the panel as well as special legal counsel, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Council. Councilmember John.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hager, so as soon as, if we do adopt approve the item number 16 and 17, so how soon are we allowed to go ahead and get the special counsel and impanel the review conduct review board?
I would, what your tradition has been is once the ordinances are passed and they're put into place, which will be as soon as the mayor signs them tonight after you were to pass them, we would need instruction to bring back a process to appoint those people, and I would probably recommend you do it right away so that you go through that process. We don't have very many complaints, thankfully, for this, because everyone is very ethical and conducts themselves accordingly. Sure. And so you're going to appoint new members, but September seems to be a long time to start that process when you've got a board that you may need to fill. So if you do pass these, if you would entertain some instruction to the city secretary to when to start the process, to go out to invite people to submit their names and take care of that part of it, then we can get that process started.
So our standard process is to usually advertise those starting about 6 weeks before the interviews begin. And Ms. Owens can actually give me a better date on that, but I know that we usually start in mid-August with the advertisements through water billing and social media.
Well, I was going to say, just to be fair, we did have a panel that we went ahead and dissolved, giving them a fair opportunity if they want to go ahead and reapply. I was just thinking that would be at least give them heads up that we are now accepting the application, and of course there will be interview process unlike before.
That's correct. Yes. But what I was pointing out was, in addition to the notification of the previous panel, we would need at least 6 weeks of time to adequately promote it to the rest of the citizens of the town. And then we could proceed with the interviews at that point. Councilmember Matthew.
You have follow-up questions? Oh, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hager, question for you. We used to have language was inconsistent in different boards. We say, normally in some of the boards that we had, the council appoints the boards and commission and they serve at will. And that was language in some boards. Is it throughout consistent now?
It's not yet. It will be. This is one that I wanted to get this behind us, and then I think that you have informally tasked me that you wanted them all to be that way, and I'll go through and bring those in the coming, probably next meeting or the meeting after.
Okay, thank you.
Depending on whether the city manager wants to put it on the agenda or not. But I've done that. I've looked at those, and there's 2 or 3 others that need that additional language in there, so.
Thank you.
Council, I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Hill.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 16 and 17.
Do I have a second? Councilmember Carroll, thank you. Point of discussion. I'd like to just go along with this, that we'll begin the advertising of the process immediately after adoption of this. And Ms. Owens will set the date for the interviews after that. Any discussion on that? Councilmember Carroll?
Can I just, I guess laying out the timeline, I mean, I'm fine getting the panel in place. I'm just trying to think of the administrative burden, because what are we talking about saving? 4 months, essentially, before we would do this. We would do this anyway, because you're right, it needs a little bit of lead time just to call for the interviews, right?
It does.
Then council has to actually go through the interviews and discuss this. So I guess I raised, and I realized we would be without a panel for a brief period of time. For 8 months?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about before they would actually get into place?
Exactly.
Well,
yeah.
I guess I'm thinking the interview process is only separated by about 4 months, though, because we would do an interview process anyway in October, isn't that right?
That's correct.
So I guess I would like to at least have that discussion, and because I don't know if it's necessary that we do it immediately if we don't want to, if we chose not to.
Councilmember Neville.
Well, just to point out that since we are making these 2-year terms, we could go ahead and get that process done, and this would be obviously we wouldn't have to worry about it, this upcoming interview process, and then we could make it part of the next one. I'm not sure exactly. My one question is with the 2-year term, is this first year an abbreviated term just because of?
I was going to recommend that if you go ahead and proceed now, I would just appoint them, and I'll write a clause in, with your permission, I'll just add a clause that the first appointment after adoption will be for 2 years and 8 months. So they all end at the same time, again, so that you're not back here redoing it in because if you start now and it's a 2-year term, technically you'd have to do another mid-year appointment, and your whole point of doing this was so that they'd all be done at the same time.
Could we consider making it 1 year and 8 months, or actually probably work out to be 1 year and 6 months for the first term?
What I was thinking about is it's called the transition clause, and I'll write the transition clause, so the first term will be for 1 year and 8 months if you want, or if it could be for 2 years and 8 months, and they'd all end, so that they would all end at the same time
Yeah.
as your other boards and commissions. So I'll write that, with the permission of the movant and the second, to add that. It will not be in the code that way, it'll be in the adoptive ordinance. So I'll write that into the adoptive ordinance, that the first appointment after adoption will be for 1 year, 8 months.
Councilmember Carroll, does that address your concern?
Well, ultimately, it sounds like I'm the lone voice here, so that will be fine. I guess my concern is also, we will get the same participation if we do it off-cycle than we would if we did it in October, because, there's going to be more interest or more attention given when all the boards are done. So I'm just curious what interaction we'll get. So, but like I said, I mean, this is not anything to get council hung up on. It's not that pressing. I was just thinking of the additional administrative burden to do it when it may not be necessary just to postpone for a few months. So, but go ahead.
Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Nevels.
Yeah, no, I just think that, I think it is important for us to go ahead and have that panel and that special counsel in place just in case. I know we talked about the infrequency that we receive an official complaint, but I still think it's important for us to go ahead and start that process and just be ready just in case. I just think it makes us look more prepared and more professional in case something were to come up.
Any further comments? So we do have a motion and a second on the floor.
Don't you have to make a motion to amend?
No, I was just
With
making
his-
comment. There was nothing to amend.
No.
For Bob.
For Bob.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Mayor, if you would ask if both the second and the movement would allow the transition provision in the adoptive ordinance, I will write that in.
And who did our original motion?
Mark.
Yeah, I can't.
Ashley?
I can't do
No.
amendment to the.
Yes, you can.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you ask the second to withdraw the motion?
Yes.
And then the movement can
I got it.
restate his
Okay,
motion.
I got it.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to withdraw my second.
All right. Thank you very much. And with the fail of a second, the motion fails.
You really don't know that. It goes back to the movement. He would like to restate his motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would the original
movement
care to restate their motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 16 and 17 with the addition of the transition clause as stated by Mr. Hager.
Thank you very much. And a second by Councilmember Long. All in favor?
Discussion. Can we call for discussion?
I just call for a vote.
Okay, call for a vote. I wanted to make sure that.
Long, Carroll, Dunn, Matthew, Hill, in favor. Opposed?
That we covered this stuff that he added in. That was amended? All right. I'm for it. This is messy, I'm sorry.
All right, let's start over.
The motion that Mr. Hill made, we read two amendments. I read them into the record when they made the motion, so they've been included in your vote this evening.
Okay.
With the addition of the transition clause.
Okay.
We're clear.
I am clear. I apologize. I just want to make sure.
All right.
Let's call for the vote again.
All right.
All in favor? Long, Carroll, Nevels, Matthew, Nevels, Dunn, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Sorry, that was messy.
Maybe number 18 will be easier. City manager report, update on projects and future agendas.
Mayor and Council, thank you. Several updates. The city is sponsoring a Spring into Fitness campaign during the months of April, May, and June. Different businesses in Coppell are hosting free fitness classes on the square in Old Town Coppell. The classes take place every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. To see the schedule of classes, visit the Old Town Coppell page on the city's website. South Beltline, construction continues on South Beltline. Sandy Lake Lift Station, work on the excavation for the new lift station is going on. On the Denton Tap intersections, we got an update today from Encore. We did not design the turn lane at Bethel School to include the poles. So Encore has taken a while to get out there and get the poles relocated. Based on the email we received today, and adding some time into it, it'll probably be next week before it actually gets completed so we can finish that turn lane. Plantation, working on landscaping. Project completion is expected by the end of this month, as long as with the weather's cooperation. The Wagon Wheel Water Tower internal rehab is complete, and weather permitting, the external rehab is expected to be completed within the next 2 weeks. All those various drainage projects we've been talking about for about the last 18 months, they are all nearing completion. They are substantially complete. And then for our fun facts for the day, the CSS and the kiosk, 496 customers used the kiosk in March compared to 368 in February. The fun fact, the fastest time is still 33 seconds. But the slowest time has sped up. So the slowest time in March was 10 minutes and 35 seconds. Council, well, I thought you were going to claim that one, which was faster than the slowest time in February for 11 minutes and 48 seconds. Mayor, that's the only I have for the report.
Thank you very much. The mayor and council reports, report by the city council regarding recent and upcoming events. The Coppell Arts Center will feature the Golden Girls. It's a brand new show that parodies the classic Golden Girl moments with puppets. Devoted fans will fondly remember our 4 girls from Miami, and for the first timers, this will be a joyful introduction to the brilliance of that television series. For dates, times, and ticket information, please go to thecoppellartscenter.org. Come join the Cosby Library on April 16th at 2 p.m. to hear from a panel of community members as they tell their personal stories of military service. In order to build a deeper understanding and empathy, audience members can ask questions of the panelists in a safe and comfortable environment. This is an opportunity for community members to share their experiences and learn from each other without debate. For teens in grades 9 through 12 and adults. The Cosby Library will be closed in observance of Easter holiday on April 17th and will resume normal hours on April the 18th. The Cosby Library will also hold a community builders meeting on April 27th from 7 p.m. to 8:30. This committee seeks to promote cultural inclusivity and diverse programming for all members of our city. Some of our past programs included the award-winning Meet Your Neighbors series as well as the Human Library. As we plan to increase our collaborative efforts in programming, we're looking for new members to come and see if this unique opportunity is one that interests you. Council, anyone have any item to report? Okay, item number 20 is public service announcements concerning items of community interest with no council action or deliberation. Seeing none. Number 21, necessary action from executive session. I believe Mr. Hager has an item to read.
Mayor and council, as a result of executive session, I prepared a motion, and Councilmember Hill will read that motion.
Yeah.
Do I have I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Hill.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the law firm of Holland and Knight to continue to represent the City of Coppell in the cause styled City of Coppell et al. Versus Glenn Hager, Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts, and to budget an additional $300,000 for legal fees through trial in said cause, and authorize the city manager to take appropriate in conformity with this motion.
Thank you, and I have a second from Councilmember Nevels. Any discussion? All in favor?
Long, Carol, Nevels, Jenn, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. With there being no further business before this council, we are adjourned at 9:08 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody.